Hi everyone, welcome to the virtual Solano County Fair. I'm Chef Stephanie Jordan. I'm the local food program manager at Sustainable Solano. And today I'm going to be demonstrating an easy Panzanella salad, which is an Italian bread and tomato salad. This recipe uses lots of summer and garden produce that we have right now, especially since we had all that early warm weather. We've got tomatoes and cucumbers coming up, so here's a good way to use all of that garden produce. This cooking demo is one of many classes that we are doing both virtually and hopefully in person as part of our specialty crop cooking class series. And it's to raise awareness of all these crops being grown by our Solano County farmers over the next 2 years. So you're probably wondering, what is a specialty crop? It's things that we eat primarily. It's vegetables, it's fruits, it's tree nuts, and it's culinary herbs. There's also some nursery products, but we are focusing on all of the edibles. So on to our recipe. For the Panzanella, we have bread and tomatoes. Those are the two main parts of a Panzanella salad. And once you get those things done, the rest is very flexible and it allows for lots of different substitutions depending on what is in your garden. And I will talk about those along the way. So my bread, you could use any kind of baguette or sourdough loaf or French bread. I happen to have some focaccia. It's a black olive focaccia. So I won't be adding olives into the salad because I already have it in the bread. So I just cut this into cubes, tossed it with a little olive oil, and put it in my oven for about 10 or 15 minutes until it turned golden brown. So here it is. It's kind of like making croutons. So they're kind of crunchy and firm, which is what you want because you want the bread to soak up some of the vinaigrette. Meanwhile, over here, I have my tomatoes. These are some little sun gold cherry tomatoes that I got in my CSA box this week from Terra Firma. I've cut them in half and I tossed them with about a half a teaspoon of salt. And they are in a colander set over a bowl. And what I'm trying to do is get some of the tomato juice to seep out of the tomatoes into the bowl. And then I'm going to use that tomato juice in my vinaigrette to add a little more flavor to the vinaigrette. So these have been sitting here about 15 minutes or so. And I think it's about ready. All right, our next ingredient is cucumber. These are popping up right now by a couple of our farmers. It is not a typical English cucumber. This is actually a painted serpent cucumber. They're a little thinner and smaller, and they have these stripes. They're kind of pretty. And I've chopped up one. My recipe calls for one large cucumber. These were a little on the small side, so I'm using two of them. So here's one already cut up. I'm going to chop off the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to cut it lengthwise. And I'm going to turn it so the flat side is down, just so they aren't rolling around. It makes it easier to cut. And I'm just going to cut these into kind of large chunks, about a half of an inch or so across. And scoop them up, put them in my bowl with the rest of the cucumber. All right, and so that's ready to go too for my salad. All right, the next thing is a little bit of red onion. So here's a small red onion. I just chopped off the top, and I'm going to cut it in half. Then my next step is to peel off the outer skin. So I'm going to go up here to the top end of the onion and peel this away. Okay, there's that. And then I'm not going to do any dicing. What I'm going to do is just, I want this to be sliced. So I'm going to make one cut from the root to the top, straight down. Then I'm going to turn it this way, and I'm going to cut really thin slices down so that I get some half moon shaped slices of the red onion. Okay, there it is. I'll just scoop those up into my bowl here. All right, there's the onion. Let's see what else is going in here. I decided I'm going to add some beans just for a little extra protein. So I have some cannellini beans here. You could also use chickpeas. Great northern beans would be great for this recipe. Again, very versatile. You can pick whatever you have on hand. Next is basil leaves. So, by the way, I have a big bunch of basil here that I got from another CSA, and I find that this is a really great way to keep your basil if you're going to be using it in a couple of days. So it just goes into a glass of water like a flower, like a freshly cut flower, and you can leave it on the counter. if you're going to be keeping it for a little bit longer, then you want to just put a bag around this whole thing and put it in your fridge. So for right now, I have about 8 really large, lovely basil leaves, and I'm going to cut them into what's called a chiffonade. So I'm going to stack about 3 at a time, and then I'm going to roll them up. So I have like a little log of basil leaves, and then I'm going to cut them across into really thin slices. And I'm making kind of like basil confetti. I don't know if you can see this. It's like these long pieces of basil here. It's really pretty. It'll look really nice in our salad. So I'm going to put that in this bowl. I'll do it one more time and use up the rest of this. You can also use the smaller basil leaves as a garnish at the end to sprinkle on top or put around the edge, depending on how you're plating it up. Okay, so there's my basil. Got my pan here. The last couple of things are pine nuts, which I toasted in advance. You always want to put pine nuts or any other kind of nut just on a dry sheet pan, put them in the oven. Pine nuts cook really quickly in the oven, so you want to keep your temperature at about 350, maybe 325, and check them very frequently. I would start checking after about 5 to 7 minutes and just make sure that they are not burning because they're so small. So my pine nuts are toasted and ready to go. And now I will move, oh, I have one more thing to do, which is the cheese. So you could use pecorino or Parmesan. You could also use feta cheese for this kind of salad. Traditionally, we would be using an Italian cheese, so I have a Parmesan right here. And I'm just going to grate this, which I will then kind of sprinkle on top when we're done. Another way you could cut this is just to do shavings if you want larger pieces. So I could also take a peeler and just make a bunch of shavings to go on my salad at the end. After we assemble the salad, I want to put on the basil and the pine nuts and the cheese at the end because the pine nuts, once they're toasted, if you mix them too early, they'll start to get a little bit mushy and the texture will change. So I always add the nuts at the tail end right before I'm going to serve. Okay, so here's my Parmesan. Ready to go. Now we'll move on to our vinaigrette. I have one clove of garlic. I'm going to give it a whack, cut off the bottom. That enables the little shell to come right off. And I'm going to slice this up. And I'm going to give it a little chop, and then I'm going to make a garlic paste to add to my vinaigrette. So after I get it cut down a little bit, I'm going to sprinkle some kosher salt on top. And then I'm going to run my knife over it like this. And the salt acts like an abrasive and will start to break down the garlic like a paste. So you can see I've got my hand on my knife blade like this, on my chef knife. And I'm kind of rubbing it and pushing down at the same time and going back and forth until I have a little bit of a garlic paste. And this is just to break down the garlic so that you're not eating giant chunks of garlic in your salad and in your vinaigrette. What you'll also start to see during this process is that some of the juice from the garlic comes out too. So you're releasing some of the garlic juice and breaking down the clove. Okay, that looks about right. So I should have kind of a garlic paste, sticky and kind of messy. All right, let's move on to our vinaigrette and then we'll put the whole salad together. So I'm going to give my tomatoes one last stir here and get the juice out as much as I can. All right, so I've got probably about 1/4 cup of tomato juice down here in this bowl. And then I'm going to add my garlic. And I'm going to add my other water-based ingredients next, which is the vinegar. So I have a couple different kinds of vinegar here today. I have kind of a basic balsamic from the store, and then I also have one from Cipe Groves. This one is a Black Mission fig vinegar. They have a retail store in Benicia, and they source a lot of their olive oil, olives from local olive trees for their olive oil. So this is a little bit sweeter, so I'm going to do kind of a mixture of the two, but I'm not going to do too much of the Cipe Grove because it is a little sweeter. So I think I need about, let's see, about 3 tablespoons of vinegar. I'm going to do about 1 tablespoon of the Cipe Groves, and then 2 of the standard balsamic. And then I will add that to my tomato juice here. All right, give that a stir. Okay, next goes the olive oil. This is from Soul Food Farm up in Pleasance Valley. I need about 6 tablespoons or so of olive oil. So I'm going to first put in 4. This is a little 4 tablespoon measuring cup. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to whisk while adding this gradually to try to get it to emulsify. It won't emulsify completely because we're not adding mustard. A little bit of Dijon mustard helps it to bind together so that the oil and the vinegar don't separate. And that's fine. For this is, you know, we don't need it to be completely emulsified. We're going to toss it all together really quick. So I'm going to drizzle and whisk. Okay, my next 2 tablespoons will go in. Okay, last but not least, we'll put in a little salt and pepper into the vinaigrette. Some salt, some freshly ground black pepper. All right. All right, now we're going to put it all together. I'm going to grab a big giant bowl here to put everything in. So we've got the tomatoes, cucumbers, the red onion, cannellini beans, and finally the bread. All right, so here everything's in the bowl. I'm just going to give it a little toss. Then I'm going to drizzle in some of my vinaigrette. Looks like I may not need all of the vinaigrette. All right, I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay. At this point, you want to just let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes because you want the bread to start absorbing all of that yummy vinaigrette and all the flavors. So we'll just fast forward and pretend we did that. I'm going to go ahead and dish some up and then garnish it with my toppings. If I don't have red tomatoes today, I have yellow ones, so if I had some red ones, that would look really pretty too. All right, in goes my basil, and some of my pecorino or Parmesan, and finally some pine nuts. And there, I'll bring it around. Here is our Panzanella bread salad, ready to eat. All right, that is it. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find more cooking classes like this on Friday afternoons at 4 o'clock. And there are details at sustainablesolano.org. So check it out, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Enjoy the fair.